So hello and welcome everyone to this edition of The Chocolate Life Live. My name is Clay Gordon, and today we're going to be embarking on a Brazilian chocolate tasting adventure. And you can see from the screen that I'm sharing here on my right, let me actually get it to be full screen, that I have a lot of chocolate. I have a lot of chocolate in front of me, and I hope to be able to get through all of it before the end of the hour. I'm not sure that I'm going to, but I'm hoping that I will. For those of you who are watching live, please take the opportunity to go into the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, and then add a comment. Let me know where you're calling in from, or where you're watching from. And if you have a question or a comment about any of the chocolates that I'm showing today, or any questions about Brazilian chocolate you might have in general, I'm more than happy to be able to answer them for you. And all right, let's jump back into a little bit more. So this is the page on the Chocolate Life right now. So for every single one of these live streams, I do create a page. You can find links and resources to all sorts of stuff that are associated with it. And there are also the archival links, so that if you'd like to watch this in the future, you can go do that. And let me jump back, and here is the homepage of the Chocolate Life right now, including a brand new listing of some equipment that's for sale. So if you're looking for some things for your chocolate factory, the equipment is located here in the United States. You might want to go take a look to see if anything that is being listed is for you. I want to thank Robert, who's watching on LinkedIn, who's checking in from Florida today. Hey, Robert, thank you very much for joining in. And so I am just going to jump in. I'm going to go full screen because this is going to be mostly on me today. And I'm going to start off with something interesting. These are some cocoa beans. If you've read my Brazil photo blog from my most recent trip to Ilhéus, Chocolat Bahia, you would have read that I had spent some time learning about a new fermentation process called sprouting. And sprouting is in 100% anaerobic fermentation. It takes place over the course of 12 to 15 days. And what it does is it ends up with a cocoa bean which has almost no acidity, astringency, or bitterness in it. It's also, let me reach over here. It's also pretty much an easy peel bean. You can go in and very, very easily take the shell off of these, which is, I think, very, very cool for anybody who's interested in having whole cocoa beans. I mean, this is a bean it's not warm from being roasted. I've had it in my possession for a week or 10 days, something like that. And I have a whole cocoa bean here. Oh, let me put this up here. So from peeled. So number one, very, very cool. And, as I mentioned in an earlier live stream, I'm interested in actually importing these beans. And so if you have an interest in finding out what these new fermentation is, please let me know. You put it in the comments, or you can contact me on the Chocolate Life. It is true that, I don't know if you can tell, but and it's out of focus. But the beans do sprout. They do germinate. But it's not nearly as obvious as it would be if you actually let the beans germinate. Sometimes happens when you open up a pot or something like that. And again, this is an unroasted bean. It's a simple, clear chocolate flavor in them. I don't think you're going to get a lot of fruit. You don't think you're going to get a lot of floral notes out of this. Good, simple chocolate note, but no acidity, no astringency, and no bitterness at all. So I think it's a really, really interesting option for people who are looking at making a chocolate that has sort of a West African flavor profile, if we can say that, but it's not using beans from West Africa, which are problematic in many, many respects. So I would very, very definitely recommend, again, if you're interested in getting these beans, let me know. And I'm going to be working on actually trying to bring samples to the Northwest Chocolate Festival and handling samples around. So again, contact me and let me know if you're interested. And I want to say thanks to Teresa, who's watching from Georgia, and Shirley, who's watching from Toronto, Canada, and very, very much. Another thing that I found while I was in Brazil, I found them both in Pará, in Ilhéus, this is obviously a leaf of a cacao tree. And this has been processed in such a way that it's extremely flexible. And so it opens up after folding. And there's a crease here from when I carried it back in my luggage. But I've seen a lot of people use these for wrapping chocolate bars. Now, you don't put the chocolate bar directly in the leaf. I mean, you do have some sort of physical barrier, whether it's foil or whether it's a BOPP plastic or something like that, so that the chocolate bar doesn't physically touch the leaf. But you can easily wrap this around a chocolate bar and either tie it down with a label, which I've seen, but also people tie them down with string. Again, this is something I'm looking at bringing into the United States. So if you're interested in the notion of having cocoa leaves that you can use for wrapping or decoration, I saw somebody make a lampshade using these things. I thought was pretty cool. Again, let me know if you're interested in that. All right, so having got that out of the way, when you rub the leaf, is there aroma? Surely, no. The answer is, this is a question, Shirley. When you rub the leaf, is there aroma? No, I mean, I know the aroma that you're thinking about. So when you walk into a cacao farm, there is a particular smell which is associated. And the answer is no. These are treated in such a way that the cellular structure is broken down in a way that makes them pliable. And I believe that there is some sort of bleaching agent that is used. That's one of the reasons why it's the color that it is. And also it's the bleaching agent that kills most of the bacteria. So these should be microbiologically pretty clean. But as a result of it, there is no aroma. And I would be worried if there were. And I want to say hello to Erickson. Erickson is somebody that I met when I was in Pará. So Erickson, thanks. Greetings. Thanks for checking in and letting me know where you're watching from today. So as I pointed out very early on, I have a lot of chocolate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that photo in the post for today's live stream so that you can go follow along perhaps a little bit better. And I'm going to follow up with, I think, brands that might be a little better known, especially in the United States and other parts of the world. But before I do, I'm going to start off with a product that the format of the product is near and dear to my heart. And so this is from a company in Brazil called Dango. It is one of the fastest growing new chocolate brands in the country. And they are doing from the bean, and they're working on ethical sourcing and a lot of other stuff. There's a lot to like about the brand. And one of the things that they do is they produce a series of products which are called quebra, and that literally means break. So I have been talking for many years about, why is everybody focused on bean to bar chocolate? Why are we putting everything in bar form? Why don't we do bean to bark? And that's what this is. So they take chocolate, they mix inclusions in it, they put it on a tray with silpat or something like that, and then they will also throw inclusions on the top. So this is a mixture of nuts. I believe it is castanha do Pará, what we would call Brazil nuts, or cashew nuts, with dehydrated banana on the top. It's a milk chocolate that they make. And it's a very well-made product. I understand it may not be specifically to people's tastes, but again, it's a well-made milk chocolate. The nuts are roasted properly. It's got a nice crunch. The banana is soft and chewy, and you can bite through it, and it gives a wonderful overall sensation in the mouth, both from a flavor and texture perspective. But I think most importantly, this stuff is sold by weight. I mean, you go in there, you go into the store, there are big slabs of it, there are stacks of slabs, and you'd say, I'd like 100 grams, and they just happen to have 100-gram packages, already put out for people. But I can say, I want 50 grams of this and 200 grams of that, and I can mix and match and make a product for whatever it is that I want, and it's fully customizable. This is a dark chocolate version. It has coupoisou. That's what this fruit is up here, coupoisou, and caju in it. And again, for people who know me, they know that coupoisou is like one of my favorite things as an inclusion. Right? Again, a very well-made product. It's got a great mouthfeel. Texturally, it's complicated, complex, and is very, very nice. And the nice thing about it is you just pour it out onto a silpat on a tray and let it sit up. You don't have to worry about measuring the molds and depositing the molds and all that kind of stuff. It's just really, really fabulous, really, really simple way to make product. And I think that many people would say, oh, because of the mix and match component, and it's sold by weight, that rather than looking at, it's $10 for this little tiny bar, I can mix and match and do all this other kind of stuff. And it turns out that people might be persuaded to buy more. I just think it's a fabulous product. And those of you who have read some of what I've written on the Chocolate Life may know that there is a company in Switzerland called Letterock. They make a product called Frisch Shogi. The Frisch Shogi is definitely deposited into frames because they're square edges. And one thing they do that Dengo doesn't is they put a transfer sheet underneath the frame so that when you pull the chocolate out of the frame, the Letterock branding is on the bottom of the Frisch Shogi, which is a nice idea. It's just, I think it's an area for exploration that not a whole lot of people in the United States explore, and I wish that more people did. What I want to do next is jump over to a Sao Paulo-based chocolate maker, Luisa Abraham. People in the United States will probably know who Luisa is. Some of her products are available through Caputo's or A Priori distribution, maybe for Bar and Cocoa, places like that. And so it's just generally fairly available here in the United States. This is a bar, and I'm starting off first. I love it because it has an inclusion of coupoisou on the back. Sorry, I'm pointing it at the computer camera, not at the camera, which is on my phone, which is up there. So this is a coupoisou inclusion. There are two 40-gram bars in each box. So this is the Intenso com coupoisou. Right, it has won an International Chocolate Awards in 2021 as silver, and one of the things that Luisa is known from is using wild cacao. So this is the cacao selvagem. Although there is no specific farm or location from which this is, it's just from the Brazilian Amazon. And again, the intense sweet fruitiness of the coupoisou goes so well with a dark chocolate that has hints of fruit on it. The chocolate itself is extremely well made, and I'm just a huge fan of coupoisou. If you've never had it, I feel sad for you. I really do. I mean, it is really, really quite lovely. Now, some people may know that you can make a chocolate-like substance with coupoisou beans. So this is the Aroma grandiflorum. Sometimes they call it cupulatte because you can't call it actually chocolate. But certainly something that if you haven't had it, I would certainly recommend it. And it's also something that I'm looking to import into the United States for chocolate makers to try. So a more conventional, in the sense that there are no inclusions in this bar, would be just a straight bar from Luisa Abraham, a 70%. It is wild beans from the Brazilian Amazon, and in this particular case, it's from the Rio Juruá, which is I believe in the state of Pará, where Luisa gets many of her beans. And I had a chance to visit with Louisa in 2017 in an original factory, went back to Sao Paulo at the end of my trip to Pará, had a chance to visit her new factory then, and her expansion plans are just really quite remarkable. The growth, just both in terms of the quantity of cacao that she wants to process and turns into chocolate, but also, as I've said, over the course of the last 5 years, just the overall improvement in just the straight technical quality of chocolate making in Brazil has really amazed me. I'm running through these things because there's just so much to cover today. It's an enticing aroma. I realize I've got it in my mouth, and so whatever it is that I'm tasting is influencing what the aroma is. But for me, in case people don't know me well, I am first and foremost focusing on the texture. I'm really looking for the tasting experience in terms of the way the chocolate bites and chews and melts in my mouth. And there is nothing to call that into a question. It's interesting. It goes to a bright sweetness at the end, so the sugar is fairly apparent at the end, more so than in the front. So it's a 70%, but it might seem a little sweeter on the end than it does when I first put it into my mouth. But it's just really, really well made. And it has been very highly rated in the Prêmio Bean to Bar Brazil, which is the internal awards program, which is run by Zélia Frangione of Chocolat. A bronze in 2019 at the Academy of Chocolate, also a bronze in 2019, but a gold in the Brazil round of the International Chocolate Awards in 2019 and 2020. So very, very interesting. Very, very interesting to think about. And one of the nice things about what Luisa is doing is that you can purchase bars which have got multiple different. You can purchase bars which have different origins, and wild cacao. So you can see the differences in wild cacao that are available in the Brazilian Amazon. So Teresa, one of your favorite bars to date, I'm going to assume you're meaning the Rio Juruá. Okay. So can I hold it up again? This is the Rio Juruá. Shirley, I think this is the one that you and Teresa are both. I'm sorry about the focus. You know what I can do? Let me turn off the bokeh effect. So I'll turn off the portrait video effect. That way everything is clear, and so things should be easier. Sorry, it's backwards. I don't have a quick way to go and turn this around. I like my left hand to be my left hand when I'm looking at myself. So it's there. So the next company that I want to get into, also Sao Paulo based, is Mission Chocolate. So this is a bar, Two Rivers, which Zélia Frangione of Chocolat has written a review of and a description of on the Chocolate Life. So you can search for Two Rivers, or Dois, DOIS, for two Rios. This is a 70% bar, but what's interesting about it is the beans come from two different areas, and I'm trying to see if I can take it apart without ruining the label. But what we have is the two rivers actually meet at some point, and you can see that in their convergence, you've got two colors of chocolate. So I believe these are both 70% chocolate. One is obviously a bean, which is much lighter than the other bean. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun to see a chocolate bar in which there are two different chocolates in the same bar. And we'll come back to that a little later. So these are both 70% dark chocolate with cacao from the Amazon, and one from the Mata Atlântica. So the Amazon rainforest and the Atlantic rainforest, the Mata Atlântica. And so you can taste one of the chocolates. Again, just from a texture perspective, just really, 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 the bite is nice, the chew is nice, the melt is nice, the melt is very clean. The flavor is intense and forward and present. And I was having the lighter of the two. Chocolate at the front, there's some fruit that comes in at the back. So there's some complexity in the flavor over time. And in the real world sense, I'd be clearing my palate between each one of these. But if I'm going to get through them, I've got to just really rush through. Again, I think what's a lot of fun is that you have some segments here where you can take a bite and you've got bits of both in the same. And I think that represents just a really, really fun opportunity for tasting, putting two chocolates together that way. And this won an Academy of Chocolate Gold Award in 2021, the Dos Rios. And I certainly understand. I did have a chance to visit with Arcelia, see her factory in 2017, and went and visited her new factory when I was there this year. And, as I said on earlier this week on Tuesday, just the improvement in, the number of chocolate makers and the overall quality. And when I talk about quality in that respect, I'm talking about technical quality. It's just gone, through the roof in the last 5 years. The amount of improvement has been really fantastic. And when you think about one of the reasons why that's so interesting is that the only cocoa beans these chocolate makers in Brazil can use are beans from Brazil. I mean, they're not allowed to import beans from other growing countries, not even producing countries, which are in South America. They're only allowed to use Brazilian beans. And 5 or 6 years ago, getting a hold of large quantities of well-fermented beans where the trees have been taken care of and flavor beans was much more challenging. But that's another thing that's happened in the last 5 years, that the beans themselves have also gotten much better. And so there's a whole lot more flexibility in what it is that's going on. There's a whole lot more flexibility in terms of the amount of different cocoa beans that are available, to the extent that, at some level, what many people would see as a real challenge to try to overcome. As a photographer, you set yourself creative limitations. And if you set limitations, sometimes that limitation can spur you into interesting creative directions, as opposed to if you had complete and total carte blanche to do whatever it is that you wanted. And I think that's what's happening in Brazil. The chocolate makers are looking at Brazilian cacao, realizing, what it is they have and how special it is, and really, really work with it. And it's really special. Excuse me. Surely you asked about the aftertaste of the Two Rivers bar. And so I've been talking on and letting the chocolate sit on my mouth. I still have the flavor in my mouth. So it is persistent. It is fairly long. It's clean. The fat has cleaned out of my mouth. So there's no texture in my mouth that I don't like. And it's a simple, clean chocolate flavor, but it's still there. And I'm also still smelling it, which is also really nice. So there are small aroma molecules getting up in my nose. And when I breathe in, I can still perceive the chocolate. And one of the things I'm not going to get into today, but if you have the opportunity, one of the things Arcelia has done is she's got a wild Brazilian bar and a wild Bolivian bar. I realized I held them up in the wrong direction. So these are two wild cacaos. It is believed that the wild cacao, which is grown in Bolivia, at least on the Hacienda Tranquilidad. So we're looking at the region of the Atenes in the eastern Beni, probably originated from Brazil. It was transferred more than 300 years ago, and it left to grow feral, not necessarily wild, but to grow feral. And so it might be possible that there's some similarity in the genetics here. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's going to be a fabulous tasting experience to be able to look at two different wild cacaos from two different neighboring countries and see how they're different, as expressed with expressed through the flavor sensibilities of the same maker. And both of these wilds are 65%, which I think is a very, very interesting choice to make. there's a sense in which there's a snobbishness. If it's not 70%, it's not real chocolate, which I would suggest that people do their best to overcome. In the mid 2000s, I want to say 2006, so Felklin introduced what they call the Cru Sauvage, which was made from beans from the Hacienda Tranquilidad. It was a 68% rather than a 70 or 72, which would have been more common. But it's still probably, I have memories of it today, just the way it melted in my mouth and the way the flavor attacked my nose in a positive sense. And it's still one of my favorite chocolate eating experiences of all time. And it's been 16 years. And it was a 68%. So if you'd said, well, I'm not going to taste it unless it's 70% or more, then, that's a real problem. And you're talking yourself out of some great eating experiences. So I'd recommend that if there's a 65%, you be open to it. The 68% be open to it. There's no reason to say, well, it's got to be 70% or I'm not tasting it. Another area where I think Arcelia excels is inclusions and flavorings. She has a number of bars which are based upon Brazilian desserts, and one of which is the Romeo and Juliet, which is cream cheese and a guava or goiabada paste. It's a pastry, usually consumed, or often, I don't know about usually, but often consumed at breakfast. She has a bar here, which is called Barujá. And it includes, it's a janduia made from castanha de baru and marine salt, so sea salt. So they're ground in. The baru, the castanha do baru, is not a nut that's generally available outside of Brazil. Castanha do Pará, or Brazil nuts, are obviously something that are very, very widely available. And why people are, focusing only on making janduia or janduia-like products with hazelnut is beyond me. This is, I went and I purchased a little bag of baru. I saw them on a shelf in a store. It's a little tiny nut, a tiny almond, but it has a smooth skin. Really, really crunchy, and has just a really, really wonderful flavor profile. So yeah, Barujá, really quite fabulous. This is one place where I think Arcelia has done a really good job of taking flavors that are very, very familiar to Brazilians, especially in desserts and pastries and things like that, and translating them into chocolate. So here's from Teresa. Need Scotty to beam Teresa and other attendees to taste with you in person. Hey, surely. Maybe it's something we can do around Christmas time. Maybe I'm going to be in Brazil, we'd have to wait until the new year. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe what I can do is get a whole bunch of people to say, hey, Clay, bring back a whole lot of chocolate from your trip to Sao Paulo in December. And we can do a tasting with that, sort of like I did with my 20th anniversary tasting in 2021. But if that's something that you're interested in, let me know. And I will be happy to think about how I would organize to make that happen. Could be a lot of chocolate I have to bring back from Brazil. Not that there's anything wrong with bringing back a lot of chocolate from Brazil. Another one of my hosts when I was in Sao Paulo were Rogério Kume and his wife Claudia Gamba. They have a farm called Fazenda Bonanza, which is in Bahia, between Ilhéus and Uruçuca. I believe maybe perhaps closer to Itacaré, and actually not far from the Fazenda Capella Velha, which is where the cocoa beans, so the sprouted cocoa beans, came from. One of the great experiences I had when I was on the farm was to do a tasting of half a dozen different cocoa pod variety, the pulp from half a dozen different cocos. One of my favorite things to do ever, whenever I'm on a farm, just like, let's gather all the different pods we can get and see how it's different. This is a bar, right? So it's a 75% Trinitario. The specific variety is called BN, or Boa Nova 34. It is a Trinitario. They do grow it on the Fazenda Bonanza. They separate the different varieties and will ferment and dry them separately in order to do it. It's a legit tree-to-bar operation, so they own the farm. They take the beans for themselves back to their own factory in Sao Paulo and produce the chocolate there. They do grow bulk cocoa, and they sell the bulk cocoa to local buyers. I don't have in my head a flavor memory for what the pulp tastes like, but there are people I know who can taste the pulp and say, "Ooh, I can get an idea about how this flavor, the flavor of the pulp, will translate into the flavor of chocolate." And yeah, no, this is really a remarkable bar. 75% intense. It's not bitter. There's no astringency. It has just a really, really rich, deep chocolate base going through it, with some little accents that just come in and go of fruitiness. All right. The experience is above the tongue and in the nose, so it's bright. It's a well-made bar, and so there's a little bit of earthiness on the aftertaste. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it. I would have to wait for a long time to determine how that would express itself in my mouth if I let it wait for a couple of minutes. But no, totally. Just really, really mid. It's a dark varietal. They call it intenso, and it is intense. We're trying. Hold it up again, and it did win a bronze in the Academy of Chocolate Awards in 2018. So many people will say that if you get a white bean cocoa, you're looking at a Criollo or a Porcelana or something like that. Not necessarily the case. This is a bar of a variety called Kotongo. So Kotongo is an albino or an albino forastero. It is a white bean forastero. So it turns out that white beans are a recessive mutation pretty much in every population of cocoa, and that the original forastero varieties, which would have come from Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, and would have been transported up into what is now Guatemala, Belize, Mayan, Olmec, Toltec, those would have been deliberately bred to increase the number of white beans. And so that's where Criollos come from. They did not exist in nature all on their own. But this is an albino forastero. I don't know if you can tell. It's a pretty light chocolate. It looks like a dark milk, even though this is a 67%. Yeah, I mean, just caramel and nuts on top of a basic chocolate. I mean, if you're a fan of dulce de leche, made from cow's milk as opposed to goat's milk, that gives you some sense of some of where the flavor profile is going. Just really, really quite nice. Teresa, I'm sorry about that. You feel like a kid with your face pressed up to a chocolate store window, but the door is locked. Sorry about that. I wish we could make it some other kind of experience. It's, as everybody knows, it's just really, really hot. And I don't like to run my air conditioning 24/7. There is air conditioning where I'm living now, as opposed to the last place I was. And so I want to be able to start getting this chocolate eaten and consumed before it all completely melts. And I don't want to put it in the refrigerator for the reasons that I don't want to put it in the refrigerator. But yeah, again, I'm sorry that I'm tempting you this way and you don't have an opportunity to taste these things. So Shirley asked an interesting question about the Kotongo. Is the snap like a milk chocolate bar? There's no milk in this. There's no milk fat in this. The Kotongo bar. So here is the bar that we're talking about. It is a quote unquote dark chocolate bar. It is 67%. And so it does have a snap, which is more like a dark chocolate bar than a milk chocolate bar. There's no milk fat in here, which is softening the crystal structure. I've got the air conditioning set to 78, so maybe the room is a little warmer than it could be. I'm not a big, again, I'm just from an energy perspective, running my air conditioning at full tilt. Not a big fan of, and don't like paying those bills either. But yeah, no, it's the snap on it is much more like a regular dark chocolate bar, because that's what it is. It is a regular dark chocolate bar. And I know the camera's up here and I'm looking down here because I can see myself and all that kind of stuff. So the next one I want to get to is this company in Bahia, in a town called Itabuna, called Benavides. They weren't in existence in 2017 when I was in Bahia for the festival then. I remember meeting them in Sao Paulo in 2020. This is it's just sort of an extension of sort of like the Dois Rios bar that Arcelia Gallardo Mission Chocolate has put together. So this is a bar that they call cappuccino. And what we have is we have two different chocolates which have been deposited into the same mold. The dark chocolate, which you can see here, is in fact a dark chocolate. It's a 60% cacao, right? And in that dark chocolate, they have refined coffee beans. The white chocolate is, they don't say what the percentage is, probably around 35%, I would guess. And what they've done is they've put cinnamon into this chocolate bar, into the white chocolate. And so this is a bar they call cappuccino. I mean, the break, you can see that it's not the same thickness all the way through. So it will give a different texture depending upon what I bite. So the amount of white and dark will change from piece to piece. So you can see that. If you ever run into a bar like this, and if you're a chocolate maker and you want to start playing with people's perceptions of aromas and flavors, what I really, really like about bars like this is if I organize this, I mean, what I've got is I've got the dark chocolate is on my nose. And so I'm smelling dark chocolate and coffee, and the cinnamon is down here, and it will be the first thing I taste. But if I turn it over, the first thing on my nose is the cinnamon, and the first thing I will taste is the coffee. And what happens is also the bite will be different. If I bite down through the dark chocolate, the texture will be different if I bite down through the white chocolate. And so it provides a lot of different flavor and tasting experiences. And I really like this kind of experimentation, playing with flavors. And it just has a really lovely melt. And I like the combination of the softness of the cinnamon. The coffee in the chocolate bar is not over roasted, or the dark chocolate, the coffee in the dark chocolate is not over roasted. And so it provides just a really, really wonderful flavor experience and texture experience. And then if I want to, I can put the dark side with the coffee just on my tongue and let it melt without biting. Although I'm gonna have to bite and chew so I can get through it. It's just really, really a lovely combination. And so if you're a chocolate maker and you're interested in playing with 2 or 3 or 4 flavors or a couple of different chocolates into a bar, the notion of depositing multi-layer bars is really, really interesting, or side by side, the way that Arcelia does it with the Dois Rios. But at the moment, I don't think Benavides is exporting outside of Brazil. So, I went through the bars that I thought might be able to be got outside of Brazil. first. So you have an opportunity to actually go find them yourselves. And so some people in the chat have said, yes, they've tried them. But if you're a maker, this is another thing that I would try, is 2 or more layers of different flavors in the same bar to give very, very different flavor experience, depending on what you're smelling on your nose and what you're tasting on your tongue. Just really, really fabulous concept. And I'm really, really happy to have been able to taste what it is that Benavides has been doing. Gosh. And where has time flown? I still have a stack of chocolate over here. I haven't really got through barely half of it. What I want to do next is I'm going to taste one of these two. So I love the packaging of this company. This is from the Fazenda Capela Velha. Capela Velha means old chapel in Portuguese. This is a bar of chocolate which is made on the farm. The bar is made from these beans that have gone through the sprouted fermentation process. So, truly what they call farm to bar. And this is a 70%. Right? Unfortunately, this is available only in Brazil. But again, it's well made. It's got a nice snap. Got a nice bite and a nice texture. An easy melt. And as I would have expected from what it is they've tasted of the beans themselves, it's a fairly simple flavor profile. As a matter of fact, this one, even though it is 70%, it's fairly sugar forward, which is kind of interesting, suggesting you might be able to go to a higher cocoa percentage and deliver a more intense flavor. But it is pretty much a simple, straightforward chocolate flavor. My feeling is if it were roasted a little more heavily, that chocolate flavor would be more intense. But again, just a really well-made chocolate bar. I think a really good example of what can be done. And the notion of all of these alternative fermentations, I've been working with with scientific, or what are called technified fermentations. Working with Zoe Papalexandrantou of Zoto in Belgium, with Ingemann and other companies like that down in Mexico, as well as Nicaragua, on technified fermentations. Where the idea is that we understand a great deal about the microbiology, of the fermentation pile and things like that, and we're going to play with our understanding of the microbiology. So this is the milk chocolate version from the same beans. It's a 40% au leche. Again, from Fazenda Capela Velha. Yeah, no. Wow. This is very, very milk forward. I mean, I think that the flavor profile of the beans, because there's no acidity, there's no astringency, there's no bitterness, they haven't been over roasted. What happens is that the flavor of the milk is very, very forward, and I happen to like that in this particular case. Wow. It's an unusual milk. I don't know where they're sourcing the milk. It could be Brazil, powdered milk. It could be Brazil. I'm not certain, but really, 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 really well made. Yeah, really, really nice. So again, Fazenda Capela Velha. And again, I like the packaging. When you put 4 of these side by side onto a row, there are 4 different varieties. It's really quite attractive, standing up on a counter. Yeah. It's a very, very dominant milk flavor. I like it. The next chocolate I want to jump into is probably my favorite story of all the stories that I ran into when I was in Bahia this time. A young girl by the name of Julia Arleo. She in a family that they're growing cocoa and have been growing cacao and selling it for quite some time. But at some point around the age of 8, she convinced people in her family to start making chocolate. And now she has a brand which is called Tree to Girl. So that is a cartoon of little Ju. There are pictures, I believe, in my Chocolat Bahia photo blog. You can see me standing with Julia. And, you know, I was impressed very, very much by the physical presence that she had when we were talking. So just her presence and how comfortable she felt, and how articulately she spoke about what it is that she was doing. And she was just shy of her 10th birthday. And so it was just remarkable to me that I think that, the future of small chocolate making is in great hands if we have young people like little Julie Arleo who are at the age of 10 interested in pursuing making chocolate, and have adults around her that are technically competent. Again, the family grows their own beans, so this is technically tree to bar, making it in small batches. Again, one of the things to think about is that the family is fairly well-to-do. They do have money. Not every cacao farmer has the resources to do what it is that the Arleo family is doing. One thing that it wasn't apparent to me is they do need to do a little work on their molding. So, however, maybe not. This is a bar that's got, it's a milk chocolate bar, 55%. With a banana inclusion. So the milk is interesting. There's a fruitiness in the milk chocolate itself that lends itself, goes well with the banana. And so, just really, 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 really pleasantly done. I managed to ask her to get one of each of the different bars that she sent, and I asked her to sign each one of the boxes. So that name, Julia, is not normally in the design of the boxes. I asked her to sign each one of the boxes for me. And, it's just, it's just well made. I mean, we can say, do we like the particular flavor profiles? That's always a question. But for me, I have this, I work on my criticisms of chocolate from two levels. One is a sort of objective criteria. Sorry for biting into these people. I know it's not good, and I didn't get a set of scissors, and I'm not going to get up and bring them. But there's sort of the objective criteria is like, is this well made, right? From a texture perspective, from other sorts of, are there any obvious defects? And then there's a question of, do I like this? And, the question of liking something is just such a subjective reality that I can tell you that I like it, you may not. And so, we're at an impasse. What I can do is I can tell you that these are all well-made chocolate bars. The molding is nice now that there's not a big inclusion like bananas in it. The molding is done well. It's tempered well. It's deposited well. The bite and the texture. This has got crystallized cocoa nibs, so nibs that are cooked in sugar, and that just a really nice texture. I don't necessarily know that the fruitiness of the chocolate combined with the cocoa nibs is my personal favorite. I'm aware that it's there, but I do know that some people do like it. Again, not my number one favorite, but I cannot deny that just from a a textural perspective, an eating perspective, really, 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 really nice. She's also on Instagram. So Ju Arleo, Arleo chocolates. So if you want to jump on Instagram and find out what she's doing. Oh wow. There might be some cinnamon in the sugar, cooked sugar around the cocoa nibs. Very, very nice. I think we're at 10 minutes to the end of the hour. Well, we have actually done a fairly good job of getting through most of what it is that I wanted to taste. There are a bunch of other things that I have that are sitting on a table you can't, out of sight, you can't get to, you can't see. But the next thing that I want to do is I want to talk about just a really, really special chocolate maker in Sao Paulo. His name's Bruno Lasavicius. His chocolate company is called Casa Lasavicius, and I was showing this off not earlier, well, maybe earlier this week when I'm talking about cacao in Brazil. And one of the things that Bruno does is he focuses a lot of his attention on working with a lot of different cacaos from a lot of different growers around the country. So he has a series of bars from the 11th National Contest. So here is a first place in the category of Mistura, which I believe is going to be a mixed, a farm which has mixed varieties on the farm. Here's first prize in the varietal category. But what we have here is, Ana Claudia Milanas Rigoni. So this is the name of the farmer. And we actually have the name of her farm, Fazenda Guarani and Linhares in Espírito Santos. And I think this is really, really important because I have to agree with Spencer Hyman of Cocoa Runners. We talked about this during our presentation of Chocoa, that one of the things that a craft or specialty chocolate maker has and can do that a big industrial or confectionery chocolate maker cannot do is they can connect the work that they're making, the chocolate they're making, all the way back to a specific farm and a specific farmer. And maybe a specific variety. I mean, here I don't see that the name of the variety is listed on the bar, but we do have the fact that it's an award winner, and we do have the fact that we do have the name of the farmer, and we do have the name of the farm that the beans come from. And he's got 8 or 9 of these at least. And so you can go and have just a survey of all the different, not all the different, but many, many different cacaos that are grown in Brazil. And, one might argue that, Peru, from the Cacao Gran Blanco of Piura in the north to Chuncho down by Cusco, has just as much variety. And that maybe that's true, maybe it's not, I don't know. I don't know that there's there's the same amount of wild cacao in Peru that there is in Brazil. But man, again, comparing just the wow. It's just there's a spice in there. It's not quite cinnamon, but it's cinnamon-like. It comes in and goes. It's like beating in and out. There's some astringency that comes and goes. So even though there's astringency, it's not an unpleasant astringency because it's not lingering, just attacks. So astringency is a sensation. It's not a flavor. Trigeminal nerve sensation. Just really, really, really interesting. The aftertaste. I mean, the aftertaste is, sometimes when we talk about aftertaste, it's just like there in the mouth and it lasts for a while. But I'm tasting this one from Ana Claudia Oregoni. And Espiritu Santo is not one of the two larger growing states. So that's Pará and Bahia are the two largest growing states in Brazil. What's interesting about the aftertaste of this is it's sort of demanding my attention. It's just coming in and saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. Oh man, I'm at a loss to describe exactly what that is. But wow. I mean, is that allspice or clove in there? Yeah, maybe allspice, but that's coming straight out of the bean itself, not as an added flavoring. I mean, just really, really interesting. I'm really, really liking the long aftertaste in that bar. I'm saying, do I want to wash my mouth out and try another one? I'm going to. So this is a blend. So the next one is a blend of different beans, again, from the Brazilian Cocoa Awards. And this is a blend of premiados, so I'm assuming this is a blend of winners. There's no listing of which one of the winners is blended in here. The flavor notes say intense complex fruit and chocolate. Yeah, my taste buds might be completely overwhelmed because of all the chocolate that I've had in the last hour. So I don't know that I can identify any of the fruits. The fruit is there, maybe more banana forward than anything else, but there are other things in there that I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be able to identify. But I'm liking just sort of the richness and the roundness and the fullness of the way it's in my mouth. Just really, really nice. There's a project that Cocoa Action was involved with in the state of Pará called Tarua Tuere. So there are two bars that Bruno has put together with, or at least two, with individual farmers out of that project. I don't necessarily know that Cocoa Action themselves is doing anything to promote the project, which is one of the problems I have with NGOs. They seem to be only interested in improving "quote unquote" quality and improving the amount of supply, but they don't tend to, in my opinion or my experience, say we're going to help you take this chocolate to market, which I think is a huge mistake as an international NGO. Although I understand that they're not in the business of business, that's not what they do. However, going in and working with farmers, no matter where those farmers are, and then not helping them with the export of their product once they get done, seems to me that what they've done is they've only done the front half of the project. It's easier to grow a product. It's harder to export a product. But if you grow and export and you can't get anybody to buy the product, why are we going through the exercise of improving quality and exporting in the first place? My own particular thoughts on those. If you have a different thought, please let me know in the comments here. And I will try to get your questions asked and answered. I'm trying to think about where the next place to go is. I mean, I've got another minute or so before the end of the hour. If anybody is watching and they still have questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. What I think I want to do is try something. I started out with a chocolate that had inclusions in it, and I'm going to end with a chocolate that has inclusions in it. And this is a different inclusion. So you've heard me talk about cupuaçu. I mean, I love cupuaçu. It is Theobroma grandiflorum, and you can use the seeds to make something like chocolate. I think in Brazil, as I mentioned, I think they're now calling it cupulate. But you can take the pulp, and there is a lot more pulp in Theobroma grandiflorum than there is in most cacao, Theobroma cacao, and it is hugely wonderful, just really, really nice. One of my other favorite flavors, tropical fruit flavors coming out of Brazil is something called Jabuchikaba. And it's pretty much impossible to describe if you've never had Jabuchikaba. And that is, one of the challenges associated with tasting. If you don't have a flavor referent, I can talk about something. If you've never had Greek oregano before, you have an idea of what oregano is, but Greek oregano is different from oregano that might be grown in Mexico or some other place. And so while we might have a broad idea of what it is, we're talking past each other. We're not talking exactly at each other when it comes to flavor. So Jabuchikaba is a tropical fruit. It kind of looks like a Concord grape. So it's like a dark purple skin, but it has a white interior flesh, and it has a seed that looks like a big grape seed. And so you have the option of just biting the whole thing, crunching it, and then sucking the pulp, and then chewing on the flesh, and then spitting out the seed. Some people will just suck the flesh out, and they won't have the skin or the seed. But in any event, it's just, it's a flavor that's impossible to describe. And I think it's going to be a little difficult to tell here, but I believe this is a white chocolate, and this is actually purple. It looks brownish, but it's actually purple. So he doesn't say what kind of chocolate it is. It's just that it's made in small stone melangers. So moinho de pedra, it's made in lots of under 5 kilograms. It's embalagem, which is wrapped with no plastics, and it is without sen, corantes, so no colorings, no aromas, no conservatives, and it is made with fresh Jabuchikaba. And this is going to be the last chocolate that I taste this hour. I have a jar of Jabuchikaba gelea that I purchased at Braca Doce Pimenta that I brought back with me. And so this has the melt of a white chocolate. It is very well refined. And the flavor of the fresh Jabuchikaba is quite evident. So it's a little bit tart, which balances the sweetness. It's not as tart and intense as the cupuaçu. It doesn't come anywhere near as being as tart or intense in this form as a tropical fruit that might be more commonly known to people, like maracujá or passion fruit. This is much more subtle. The closest thing that people might be aware of, might be knowledgeable of, is acai, although it is very, very different from acai, but it has some subtle similarities. It's the closest flavor reference. If you've never had Jabuchikaba, the closest thing I can get you to is acai, but just like incredibly well made. And just really, 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 really flavorful. So yeah, ingredients: manteiga, the cacao, so cacao, cocoa butter, leche, milk, organic sugar, and Jabuchikaba. That's it. 4 ingredients, just really fabulously well made. He does the same thing with banana. There is a 100% cacao. It's sweetened with cacao honey, so mel de cacao. And in addition to having just a straight, so this is a 40% milk chocolate, they have a 50% goat's milk chocolate. Just a really, really nice assortment of flavors. And as I've mentioned, I mean, the number one thing that I can say about Brazilian chocolate over the past 5 years is just how much the tide has raised everybody. I mean, there are still some people who I think are new to the business, who've just started off, who don't have experience tasting a lot of the better chocolates that are manufactured in Brazil, who may not have some experience tasting chocolate made outside of Brazil from Brazilian beans and other busy beans, where it's just a matter of experience, just a matter of time. where they get their 10,000 hours in and learn what it is that's going on. But overall, just my experience from 2017 through 2020 until this year is just, if you're not familiar with Brazilian chocolate, if you are not familiar with Brazilian cacao, if you are a chocolate maker and you have never used Brazilian cacao before, you need to go start paying attention to what it is that's going on. It's the 7th largest producing country in the world right now. They're exporting almost nothing. And so, of the roughly 180,000 metric tons, something like that, they grew in 2020, they're exporting, 650 metric tons. There's not a lot out there. And so it will be a new origin, a new producing country, a new set of flavors that people are not familiar with. There's a lot of work that's being done in the Trans-Amazonica region, in the Mata Atlântica, having to do with rainforest and biome preservation. And so working with these small producers and working with the organizations that they're working with has a direct impact on things like deforestation, reforestation, afforestation, whatever you want to call it, trying to counter climate change, trying to deliver to smallholder farmers, living incomes. I think that, there's an easy opportunity for people to get involved. It's not that difficult to get to. Flying into Belém is not all that difficult. It may be difficult to get on a boideira and get into a working farm, but there are resources, not only in Pará and Bahia, but Espírito Santo for getting at those farms. I can help point you in that direction if you are interested in. And I think that as a maker, you deserve to go and consider. I know it's had a bad reputation because of the introduction of witch's broom and the varieties that were introduced, which were focused on productivity and disease resistance as opposed to flavor potential. I believe that has changed completely in the last half dozen years or so. And the future is really, really bright. One final flavor. Not one final flavor, but one final question from Shirley. She asking, how are you finding the roast profiles over the last couple of years? So one of the things that I think about when I think about small chocolate makers, craft chocolate makers, if that's, I prefer the word specialty, is that they have a tendency to over roast. They have a tendency to under roast, not over roast. And I think the reason why is that they have relatively expensive beans and they're worried about ruining expensive beans. And so they tend to be very, very careful about the way they roast them. And I think that one of the challenges that a lot of people have with a lot of craft chocolates is that while, that is a flavor profile that is, a slight under roasted flavor profile, is something that is well liked among a lot of the craft chocolate judging community. And so these things tend to get very, very high marks. In terms of the general public, they like things that are a little bit more heavily roasted. So I think that part of the quality making, I just realized that I don't have any bars from Baiani, and I'm wondering where they are. Anyway, is that people have gotten better. They are definitely less prone to under roasting. The flavor profiles appear to be more fully developed in that respect, but they're still not over roasting. I think that there are some bars that are here that could benefit from a little heavier roast in what they're doing. That's a personal flavor preference. But overall, I think that in terms of being able to develop more fully nuanced chocolates, that in general, roasting is getting better. And a lot more people are investing in more sophisticated roasting machinery, which is helping. So they're moving out of little tiny Beemores. For example, it's like, they're designed as 1 kilogram coffee roasters, something like that. So they're moving up into bigger roasters where they have more control, and they're working with a larger quantity of cocoa at the same time, and that's helping improve the overall flavor profile. So Shirley, I hope that answers the question that you asked me today. And it was great. It was great. All the questions, I really think. So Clay, can I recommend, so Teresa, a course for tasting chocolate that offers a certificate? And Teresa, no, I can't, because I haven't taken any. So I am not going to recommend a tasting course that offers a certificate if I actually haven't personally taken the course and understand what the certificate actually refers to. One of my personal challenges with the organizers of the International Chocolate Awards is that I have been a judge many, many times, often at the last minute, asked to come into service, pressed into service, just because I happen to be in the location where the awards have been. And at no point have the organizers of the International Chocolate Awards, who also are the organizers of the International Institute of Cocoa and Chocolate Tasting, ever said, "Thank you, Clay. Here's a certificate for a free tasting course the next time we're in your area. Please join us." And so part of my challenge is that I've been working on chocolate tasting for 20 years, actually since 1994, so 27 years now. And I have yet to discover how being a chocolate critic is going to be able to turn into a business. Very few people are, as an independent business person, who's paying for ratings and reviewings? Almost nobody. So how do you turn it into a full-time job? So one of the things I would ask Teresa is, what do you want to do with the certificate? If it's just for personal knowledge and personal understanding, go to any of them and decide if they like it, if you like it, if you like the experience. If what it is you want to do is, okay, like, oh, I want the equivalent of a master's of wine, where when I get my certification, I can turn around and get a job as a sommelier or something like that. I don't know that any of the existing certifications are going to help you do that. I just don't know where the return on investment comes from, except if it's from a personal knowledge. I mean, it may be great as a hobby business. Certainly, perhaps it will help do that. But I think that the prospects for the return on investment in these things are fairly limited. I think that if you'd like, Teresa, what I may do, not what I may do, but what I will do, is hold a course on how I taste chocolate and what it is I'm looking for, and go through the exercises that I use to develop my taste. That I develop my skill. How do I evaluate chocolate? And then how do I talk about it? And if that's interesting, please let me know. And you can do it here in the comments. You can go to the Chocolate Life Live or thechocolatelife.com. You can go to the Chocolate Life Live Brazilian chocolate tasting. You can go down here and add a comment. And you can say, "Hey, Clay, I'd like to know more." You have to be a member of the Chocolate Life in order to add comments to the Chocolate Life. You can do that. Click on the join button. There's always a free membership level. If you want to support what it is that I'm doing, then I always appreciate the support. Knowing, however, that in this time, dollars are difficult to come across, and where you're going to spend them is it's a challenge sometimes to go and support content creators like myself. And I appreciate everyone who has done that and supports the channel as a free member. Absolutely, it gives me the confidence to go and continue, the impetus. There are people who are liking what it is that I'm doing, and there are people who are also supporting what it is that I'm doing. So yeah, thanks everybody for doing that. So Teresa says, I would like to create tasting experiences to help inform the general public, to help support the industry, and grow my knowledge for personal enjoyment. All right. So Teresa, what I'm going to do is a couple of things. First one of which is what I want everybody to know is a little bit about the upcoming schedule. So this coming Tuesday, what's that? The 12th to 16th. I'm going to have Sander Wolf, who is the founder of the Dallas Chocolate Festival. He's going to be on as my special guest. We're going to be doing a preview of the Dallas Chocolate Festival. And we're going to be talking about a little bit about the history and what it is that people can expect at the Dallas Chocolate Festival this year. Then I'm also working on an Ask the Chocolate Life article about affordable chocolate bar wrapping machines. I hope to get that up in the next couple of days. And then also, interestingly, I'm working on this is a week from today, so some claims about chocolate that I want to debunk. And so those are the next three Chocolate Life Lives. I got a bunch of chocolate here. And so what I think I'm going to do is, Teresa, is like a week from this coming Tuesday. What I will do is I will put together a Chocolate Life, which is about how I trained my palate, the exercises that I used. There are a couple of worksheets that I put together, and I'll make those worksheets available so you can download and follow them along. And then I will have a bunch of different chocolates, and I will show you the process that I go through and what it is that I did and what it is that I learned and how I do it. And I think for me, my goal was to create an exercise that would help people understand their own preferences, right? As a critic, I realized that I don't have to eat the chocolate, and if I like it, I like it. But you might not like it, and it doesn't mean that my taste is better than yours. It's just that our taste is different. And so, what I want to do is help people develop confidence in their sense of taste, to take ownership in their sense of taste. And how would you go about doing that? And I don't necessarily know that the idea of descriptive tasting, which is putting something in your mouth and trying to describe it, what am I tasting, which requires a whole lot of experience to get to anything, which is, I think, competence to do it. What you want to do is help people understand their own sense of taste and what it is that they like and they don't like. And that's a very, very different mechanism. And it's really easy to teach, and it's really easy to learn. And it's a great exercise that can be done in groups of people, from just one, yourself, to help your own understanding, but it also can be done in a group setting with 2, 3, 5 or more. And it can be a lot of fun. And it's the approach that I use when I am doing chocolate tastings in public when I give them. So I will be doing that, let's say, in 2 weeks. By the way, this is the back end editorial interface for the Chocolate Life. And so, Teresa, if that sounds interesting to you, let me know. And I think that we're going to do, so we'll do that not this coming Tuesday, but a week from Tuesday. We'll make that happen. And Nick, who is works for Cocoa Runners, I think he's based in Scotland. Nick, so that would be great. Something helps the layperson develop some tasting skills in an accessible way, which isn't quite so daunting as doing a formal course. So that's 2 votes. So I will make that happen. Nick, thanks very much for joining in and suggesting that we do that. I will go and do that. And I am really looking forward, now that I've got that set up, I'm really looking forward to people's responses to it. I do it a lot to people who are not necessarily chocolate aficionados. So there are people who've come in for perhaps a chocolate and wine pairing event, which is hosted by their employer or something like that. I used to do them a lot at Two Beans here in New York, and I was in the Grand Central area early this weekend. Two Beans has closed down, so what we've got is the Meadow. I think that Hotel Chocolat closed down in New York as well. People think about New York and what a great city it is for chocolate, but in terms of homegrown experiences, the number of makers here and the number of retail outlets where you can get a lot of specialty chocolate, New York is not at the leading edge of chocolate here in the United States, which I think surprises many people. But in that, we are way past an hour and 20 minutes into the session. I want to thank everybody who's been with me today here for this session of the Chocolate Life Live, a Brazilian chocolate tasting. Unfortunately for you, and fortunately for me, is I have a lot more chocolate that I didn't taste, and I'm going to be getting through it over the course of the next little while. Certainly enjoy it. And one of the things that I hope that I have done the most here is encourage people to go and reach out, find Brazilian chocolate makers that they can taste, and find out if your experiences are the same as mine. The same as mine. If your experiences are different, go to the Chocolate Life, hit on the Chocolate Life Live Brazilian chocolate tasting, and add your comment saying, Clay, I think you're wrong. Clay, I think you're right. Do you know anything about this particular maker or that particular maker? just let's continue the conversation on the Chocolate Life. That's why it is there. And if you're a chocolate maker and you're here, and if you're not, haven't been considering Brazilian cacao for making chocolate, you should consider Brazilian cacao for making your chocolate. If nothing else, there's a whole different world of flavors that you're not going to find in Madagascar. You're not going to find in Peru. You're not going to find in all of the origins that you already know, right? And that's one of the things that I think is really, really exciting. And with a signing off, Shirley saying thank you very much. Shirley, thanks for being here for the entire time. Now you need to wipe drool off the iPhone screen. So I hope you have one of the new iPhones, maybe a 12 or 13, which are water resistant, so that you don't have to worry about damaging the phone. I'd hate to think that someone damaged their phone as a result of what I did today. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope that you understand better today what I mean when I say, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So ciao, everyone. Looking forward to having you be my guest at the next Chocolate Life Live.